All right, so let's just pick up from where we left off before. So I had some HTML tags here within my body section, and we were seeing how that looked on the web page. And obviously, it just looks very basic, you know, as if you were just adding things to a Word document, which isn't obviously what a final web page should look like. So what we're just going to do this time is just have a look at CSS and how we can modify the content that we've added to the page, because that's what CSS is doing, modifying the content that you add with HTML. So first things first, we need a new document for a style sheet. Now, you could technically put your CSS in within the HTML, but generally it's not the best idea, just because, you know, if you've got lots of pages that are linked to one style sheet using the same kind of layout, which often you would in a website, you can have less code because you're not duplicating it. So what I'm going to do is go File, New File in my VS Code, and I'm going to go File, Save As. I'm in my same website folder, this web example one I created before, and I'm going to call this document Style. Okay, and as before, I could just put .css, but what I'm going to do is select CSS from here, and then this document will be called style.css because that's the file type. I'm going to hit save, and then we can see the file name up there. Okay, you can also see that the little icon has changed up here, and down in the bottom right it says CSS. So just a quick reminder of this before. So we had this line of code here, which links the style sheet to this document. And remember, we called it style.css. You know, obviously, if you had named this differently, you would need to change the name here to correspond to that. Right. So how does CSS work? So let's look at what tags we've got in our HTML. I can see straight away, you know, I've got this heading tag. All right, this H1 heading tag, which is here. So I want to change that, change the color of it, change the font, change the size, change the position, whatever. So what I'm going to do is just type in H1 because that's the tag that I want to change. And then you need these curly brackets, and as soon as you do the opening curly bracket, it creates the second closing one for you, and you just hit enter and it all fits into place. And then what you do is you just write in, you know, what it is that you want to change, and obviously that has to match up to the right CSS code. So if I just wanted to change the color, the code for that is just color. All right, and it's quite useful with VS Code. It gives you lots of things that you can do with color or whatever it is that you start typing. It all comes up here, which can be very useful. Then what I do is just do a colon, and then whatever, write in the color. Maybe I want red, and then semicolon at the end to close it. That's very important. Okay, push enter. This is fine. So what we're going to do, I'm just going to Control S to save it. And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to check that this has actually worked. So if I push refresh, yeah, okay, that's gone red. I know definitely for sure that this style sheet is linked correctly to this HTML document, and this link is working. If you were making changes here and nothing was happening in your website, no changes were happening and everything was saved, there's a problem with that link and you need to address that. All right, so make sure you check that early. Yeah, so you know, things here like that's the American spelling, bear in mind things like that. And the thing is with CSS, there's so many things that you can do. All right, so many things. And doing like the solo learn course on CSS, for example, will introduce you to all these different things that you can do so that you can make use of them here, because I'll never have time to go through every single one. So we can change the font size. So if I just type in font, all these things to go up, come up here, the things that you can do with font, which is useful. So font size. Again, there's loads of different ways in which you can address font size. We're just going to use pixels to keep it simple. But again, if you want to play around with all these other things, or look on W3 Schools, see what they do. then you can go for it. But for now, the basics. So let's type in 50 pixels, 50 px, semicolon, save. All right, so what I want to actually change, and then what I want to change that by. So let's refresh that, and then that title is nice and big. Okay. So just some things to note. So if, for example, I didn't have that semicolon at the end there, notice that the color coding is gone. See if you can make it obvious. So that's the font size is blue. If that goes, the color coding is gone, and the color coding really helps to identify if there are any errors. If I save that now, that wouldn't work, and then my font size is going to go back to where it was, and the color's gone even as well. All that CSS is broken because I don't have that semicolon at the end there. Okay, so bear in mind it all needs to be written correctly. If you ever have any errors and things aren't working, could be to do with that, so check that. With text as well, it's quite good. You can use text align. So text, you can go text align, and then you can align it to left, right, wherever. Center is what I want. Semicolon. Save that. Refresh. And it's brought that back and it's put that into the middle for me. Okay. Other things generally you do with a heading is your font family. So font family. This is where, you could use things like Google Fonts to get particular types of fonts, or you can just use the basic ones. So, and then also you've got things here like monospace, serif, and sans serif, like we addressed, with the different types of typography. I'm just going to use, I don't know, Verdana. Semicolon, save, and refresh that. Right, doesn't look amazing, but this is how we can change things. The other way that you can address things like color, one I use really is Hex Codes. So you do hashtag, and then you type in your actual code. I use 333 quite a lot because it's just a nice grey color. I don't think, yeah, sorry. And there it changes it. There's obviously you can go online and look up hex code picker or something, and then you can change that. Normally, once you've got a hex code in there, whatever it is, when you hover over it, it brings up this color changer. So if you wanted a different color, it's like a blue like that, pick that. And then actually what it does there, it puts in the RGB values, which is again just another way of addressing color in CSS. Doesn't matter which you use, they all work, wherever you prefer. And we'll save that. Okay, so that's how we can use CSS to change things like text. But let's have a look here, because we also got an image in here. So let's have a look at changing that. So next line down, again, we need to type in the tag. So the tag is image. Open up the curly brackets, push enter, and then we can address the image here. So I'm going to change the width of the image, right? And I'm going to make it 150 pixels wide. Push save, refresh that, and you can see that picture is now 150 pixels wide. Right, pretty small to be honest with you, so maybe you want a bit bigger, maybe you want it 400 pixels wide. Okay, we'll save that, and that's fine. All right, so that's how you can change the size. Bear in mind, I've only done width. If I did height, and made that like 150 pixels high, and save that, obviously it will make your image the exact width and height that you've identified, but that's where you're going to lose the aspect ratio of the image. You're going to get stretching and squashing and things like that. So just bear that in mind. Be careful using width and height. With images, normally I just use width because it adjusts the height accordingly. Okay, now in terms of positioning the images, we could center that image, but we'd have to go to we can't use like image align center, there's no such thing. You can go into the HTML and actually use a center tag. So if we type in center, this is where the auto creating the closing tag can be not useful because it's created it in the wrong place. So I need to cut it and put it at the end there so that that opening and closing center tag is around that image. And then there you go, it will be centered. Well, we can use the center tag to center anything. It's just useful. But, oops, sorry. Let's get my code back. That's not always what you might want, so I'm going to remove that. For now. Okay. You might just want to move it over slightly, in which case you can use a margin. So if you do margin left, for example, 200 pixels, save that, and you can see it's moved it along that amount of pixels. Okay, again, you can use margin on the top, 200 again, just for an example, and it will move it down that far. Okay, so you can position images or whatever you want to position in that way. You can also use padding, but you probably wouldn't want to use that in this instance. Let's see if it would probably just have the same effect, 200 pixels. Yeah, so the padding has done the same effect, but we'll come to the difference between margin and padding in another time because you want to use them for different instances. But for now, that's all I want to do, just to show you just the basics of how CSS works. So you identify the tag first of all, and then within your curly brackets, you identify what you want to change about that particular tag. So you identify what it is you're changing and then what you want to change it to. All right, hopefully that makes sense. So just have a practice with changing your HTML tags within the style sheet. And like I said, the Solo Learn course will take you through all the lots of different things that you can do with CSS. And if you want, there's something you think, oh, I want to change my font to do, I don't know, something, and I want to hover over it, it changes or something, look it up, and you'll find coding examples of how to apply that into your own CSS. Okay, so it is also down to sort of trial and error, trying things out, practicing, and then eventually you'll know how to do that for the next time. All right, but that is all for now.